I've not really been all that interested in Star Wars ever since me and my buddy left The Last Jedi and spent the next 3 hours of our night completely riffing on it. But when you walk up to me and slap what is basically XCOM 3 with a Star Wars coat of paint down in front of me, suddenly I'm a little bit interested again. And that's exactly what we've got here. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello, everyone. If you enjoy what I do, including coverage of a surprise reveal of an XCOM-like set in the Star Wars universe, and all the news that's apparently going to be coming along with that, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. And of course, as always, thank you to all of my channel supporters. You'll be seeing their names scroll by at the end of this video. As a brief overview, Zero Company is an XCOM-style Star Wars title releasing in 2026, which is being developed by BitReactor in conjunction with Respawn and EA. And if you haven't heard of BitReactor, we'll talk about them in a second, because this is a kind of big release for them. The game is going to be set near the close of the Clone Wars, with main character Hawks leading a team of mercenaries and renegades in a quasi-mercenary force. And as you might expect from anything that is taking major inspiration from XCOM, you have a big focus on tactical missions, especially Black Ops, infiltration, and squad skirmishes. The narrative really seems to be honing in on that as well, with Hawks in the trailer describing how his job and the missions that the squad takes on aren't going to be those big, flashy space battles that you're used to from Star Wars. You're not going to be seeing these guys featured as the cornerstone players and their events in history. This is dirty, rough, secret work that's handled by professionals, not heroes, which honestly to me is the side of Star Wars that's really the most interesting to me nowadays. I'm looking a lot more at things like Andor and a whole lot less at things like the new movies, We can apparently expect between mission base building and info gathering, character customization, and even, yes, that fabled permadeath that I love so much, as well as, of course, a lot of other features that we'll be learning about as time goes by. It's also important to note that this is the first game for newly established studio BitReactor, and they do come with a bit of a pedigree. The studio has apparently been built by veteran devs of games like, yes, XCOM, as well as the Civ series and Gears of War, possibly Gears Tactics. It would certainly make sense. So there's definitely a lot of potential for greatness here. Today we're going to break down what we can learn from the trailer that was just released, as well as other info from various other outlets and events that's been dropping over the course of the day that gets a bit deeper into the mechanics. We'll start off with the trailer and then get into some of that other information. In the trailer, we get a decent look at some of the named characters and combat functionality of the game. Thus far, we have Hawks, who here looks like a classic Han Solo style gunslinger smuggler type, but who can actually be reclassed and customized as the player sees fit, which we'll talk about in the expanded info section. We also have a clone trooper, a Mandalorian commando, make sure you don't mix them up, or Star Wars diehards will flay you alive, a sick-looking sniper, and of course, a Jedi. There's also this little astro droid here. I'm not sure if he's going to be playable or if he's on the battlefield in some other role or if he's just kind of like a partner character. We don't really know yet, but he does show up in the trailer, so hey, maybe. Combat looks as you'd expect, with plenty of chest-high walls and full structures to take cover behind. The UI takes the form of a wheel around characters, and based on the icons, a lot of what XCOM vets would expect appears to be here as well. Sprint, multiple different forms of attacks, Overwatch, and of course unique character/class abilities. Each character does have some of the abilities that you'd expect for the setting. The Jedi, of course, has a lightsaber for melee combat and can use force push. The sniper has aimed shots and what looks like might be some sort of like a smoke screen for cover. The clone trooper seems to be a weapons expert with a rapid fire rifle and a missile launcher, and the Mandalorian commando has a jetpack, of course, that they can use to take to the high ground, throw grenades, and get that height advantage. Thus far, all the enemies that we've seen have been battle droids and super battle droids, but I would not be surprised if other separatist forces like Droidekas and Genoshans showed up at some point. And based on the timeline, it's possible that maybe we'll be fighting Republic forces too, with those like the closer to Stormtrooper clone soldiers that you see from the tail end of the war. And it is interesting that we could be in that sort of era, seeing as how the clone trooper that we have is wearing the old school original clone trooper armor, which really makes you wonder, how did he wind up here? Why is he fighting for this random mercenary force? What's his story? Which is something that we'll be learning a little bit more about for all the characters coming up. Overall, from what we've seen of the gameplay thus far, I really like the visual style of the game. You've got those clean, distinct silhouettes of the Clone Wars era of Star Wars, mixed in with a more desaturated color palette that I think really leans into the gritty Spec Ops style that you'd be expecting from anything XCOM, and which the setting moves more towards as you move out of the Clone Wars and into the like Galactic Empire original trilogy setting. Now, while the actual trailer itself was fairly short and there was some information to glean from it, there's a lot more to discuss based on some articles and events that have been going on that have been dropping some extra little tidbits about the game. There is apparently going to be a galaxy map, sort of like the original Star Wars Battlefront games, which is where you'll be seeing all the potential operations that you can take on with details like difficulty, how long it'll take to complete, how many squad members you'll need for it, the importance of the mission, etc., etc. Definitely like the world map on XCOM 2, things like that, but it's a galaxy, so it's got to be a galaxy map. We mentioned this previously, but you will be able to fully customize not only Hawks' class, but also what alien species or just, human that they are and what gender they are. And since they're a playable character, that's a really cool feature to have given the swath of humanoids in Star Wars. We don't know exactly what classes are going to be available yet. I don't know if you can make Hawks a Jedi or like a clone trooper style soldier that's just not a clone trooper. If you're going to have other more like support-based classes that are all in that gunslinger style. We don't really know yet, but it's certainly cool that you can have a playable character avatar in the game, which is nice. Beyond the main squad, who have their set personalities and stories, we will also still be able to recruit generics, which is something that I always like to see in any tactics or strategy game, especially in things like XCOM, because you want to be able to customize your squad, name them after your friends, send them out into battle and see if they die. It's just a fun part of these style of games, and it's a really nice way for players to be able to make their army the way they want it to be. All these recruits will be fully customizable in the same way as the main characters, and it does appear that you'll be able to change out things like armor and color scheme for each class as well, as you should probably expect. And you can even change the look of your droids, so with any luck, we'll be able to add custom stories and such as well for these sweet custom characters, so that when eventually you do mess up or get unlucky and they inevitably die, you can mourn them all the more. Really, this is the fact that I was the most concerned about when I first saw the trailer for the game. There's been such a big push recently to remove permadeath from tactics games, and in things like, say, Fire Emblem that are very character-based. I get why people would want that, but in anything that's like an XCOM game, you have a bunch of generics that you get attached to, and losing them is a huge part of the tension and the drama of the game. So I'm so happy that Zero Company does have permadeath. What's interesting is apparently even the named squaddies, like the actual characters, can die in battle, which will supposedly have an impact on how the story plays out. We'll have to see exactly to what extent that story impact goes, because that could get messy for trying to make a cohesive narrative, but on its face, I love to hear it. Definitely interesting that they're going this route. And of course, while I would never endorse it in a game like this, you can also toggle the permadeath off if it isn't your speed. I really don't recommend it. I think these games are best played when you can actually lose some of your favorite characters, and how you deal with that is a big part of your own developing story. But if you're really opposed to it, you do have that option as well. As far as the overall narrative and tone is concerned, director Greg Fortish has said that they are shooting for more of a Rogue One than a New Hope, and it does make sense based on what we've seen thus far. For something that's going for an XCOM vibe, I think it's definitely appropriate. It's definitely more enticing to me. So while I'm sure there's going to be a lot of classic Star Wars fans that aren't as into that, I do think there's an audience for it, and I am definitely part of it. Finally, very interestingly, the game's soundtrack is being composed by Gordy Habb, who has done the OSTs for a ton of different games, including a lot of Star Wars ones like the Respawn Jedi games and Battlefront, as well as stuff like Halo Wars 2. So I do imagine that this is going to be a banger soundtrack once we get to hear more of it. Hopefully it really suits that dark, gritty, tense battlefield nature that these games strive to have. All told, we don't have a ton of information just yet, but it was also only just revealed, so I imagine there's going to be a lot more over time as we learn more, and I'm incredibly intrigued. I was not expecting the next XCOM to be Star Wars, and while, yeah, I and a lot of other people have become very disenfranchised from Star Wars in general in the last, 15 years, what little I have enjoyed seemed to be what's being leaned into here, and I'm very happy about that. Combine that with a talented, experienced dev team, tight tactical gameplay from what we've seen, and I am absolutely in. I'll be keeping a very close eye on this one going forward, and will absolutely be covering any news about it as it comes out. So make sure you stay tuned in here if you're at all interested in Star Wars Zero Company. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about the game, what you're hoping to hear about it going forward, features you'd like to see, if there's any little bits of news that I didn't cover here that came out so I can add it into a future video or a pinned comment, all that type of good stuff. Strike up a conversation because I'm very hyped for this one thus far. Most importantly, of course, thank you all for watching. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Thank you to all of my supporters whose names you've been seeing scroll by here. And of course, I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other, y'all. Bye now.